Many of my friends assume that the goal of a patent examiner is to deny the patent. My job is to make sure that the patents we grant stands the test of time. There are 160 million patent documents. The challenge is to be able to find this needle in the haystack, and the haystack is growing exponentially.
Most people think about IP as a checkbox.
Patents is not just for being patents. It's facilitating something else, some kind of way forward. I hate looking at a brilliant application, and the first document I find when I search is the inventor publicizing it as a scientific publication 2 months earlier. You shouldn't see everything we find as competition. Perhaps your best ally is there, because your invention might slot perfectly into what your competitor is doing. So it's opportunities.
Today, I'm joined by none other than Carl Hamsten. Welcome, Carl. Thank you so much for accepting the invitation.
Thank you very much for having me. I look forward to this conversation.
So, Carl, for those of the listeners who don't know you yet, how would you explain what you do on a daily basis?
Yeah, I mean, if I start up a conversation with anyone outside of the industry, I just say I work with innovations. and sometimes people get really excited, and sometimes you see kind of their eyes fading out.
So without, I can imagine, a conversation with your neighbor, and slowly the neighbor backs away. Yeah. So without anyone backing away, what do you actually do with innovation?
Yeah, so then I follow up with what I do, which is then a patent examiner at the Swedish Intellectual Property Office. And then I go on to tell them that, my great benefit is that I get to see all the latest and greatest innovation pass through my desk and really get a sneak peek on what's coming up ahead. So it's a privilege to be a patent examiner. And I think you agree, it's a privilege to work in this industry, because you get to see what, the great minds have thought up.
Indeed. But of course, I assume you also see some very crazy ideas on your table every now and then, but maybe that will be part of our conversation a little bit later. So what I want you to clarify to the listeners first is you are also a representative to an organization called PRV Consulting. How does that relate to the Swedish Patent Office and the work you are doing there?
Yeah, sure. So I'm employed at the Swedish Intellectual Property Office, called PRV, and we've been an intellectual property office for more than 140 years now. So already in 1947, we started what is now called PRV Consulting. So that's a completely separate entity from the patent office. And what we basically do at PRV Consulting is search services.
Do you only help to do search for the Swedish Patent Registry, or do you also search in global databases?
We search in all the global databases. Perhaps you want to do a novelty search before you file your patent applications. We also do FTOs, help looking at validity searches, and that's where our commitment ends. You could imagine that we could be kind of seated at both sides of the tables if we advise them what to do with their application, and then we get the application. So that's impossible. So we do searches, but all their advice on how to continue, they will have their own counsel for.
Tell me a little bit more about your actual work at the Swedish Patent Office. As you mentioned, you are a patent examiner, right? So ideas land on your table, and then your job is to decide whether those are worthy of being a patent or not. Would that be a fair conclusion?
That's the executive summary, yes.
But what do you actually do? Like, how does
sure.
that process actually look like?
My background is in biotechnology and life sciences. So I have a PhD in biotechnology and worked as an academic researcher before I joined the PRV. So at the PRV, the Swedish Intellectual Property Office, I'm in the biotechnology group. So whatever lands on my table are inventions in that field. I think coming from academia, it's quite similar as you do as a researcher. So I see the case and I immediately, of course, try to see, is this known or not? Do I understand what the inventive concept is? So they send me an application. I will first try to understand what is really the core of this invention. That might not shine through the claims or the application, but I will try to find out what is the actual core. And then, of course, perform my searches to see if this is known or not. I mean, a typical case in like a few days, I will have searched that invention. Depending on who you are, hopefully I found some relevant documents, or hopefully I won't find some relevant documents. I mean, many of my friends and people that I talk to assume that the goal of a patent examiner is to deny the patent, to find, the best document. But I think it's not. I mean, my job is to make sure that the patents we grant stands up the test of time and stands up to be challenged further on. Because I think it's more detrimental for a company or a innovator to get a patent that won't stand scrutiny, because then they might have spent, a fortune in money, time, a couple of years of R&D, and then in the end, it won't stand up when the competitor challenges them. So my job is really to make sure that the patents that are granted will stand the test of time. So strong patents, that's my line of work and my goal.
And what you're essentially looking for is a very strong innovation cases, right?
Yeah.
Something that actually could potentially change an industry or a future. Let's say, I have a garage and I invent something there, and I'm really seriously thinking that this could be a huge change in, let's say, biotech. Although I'm a little bit careful with doing anything in my garage with biotech, but let's say
you're in your lab, okay?
yeah. There is a lab. But how can I do my best to prepare my application in a way that it will stand the test of time?
Yeah, and that is really kind of the big question, isn't it? Yeah, and that's what we really try to go out and talk to inventors about. So, of course, before they file any application, I suggest that you make sure that you have developed your idea enough.
Mm-hmm.
At least you know where you want to take it, because you need to include that future looking ahead into the application as well. Because even though you're really starting up, you have a brilliant idea, but you don't really know the product, you should at least have an incline on where you want to go, because that's needed to be in the application as well. And I think that you really early on should do a novelty search just to see, what is the field looking like. Because perhaps your idea is truly inventive, but I mean, there are 160 million patent documents out there, and a few times that in scientific publications. I think it's really crucial just to broaden the horizon a bit early on, so perhaps you have to steer a bit to the side, or make intelligent choices. We're in a global market, right? You can file with us, you can file with EPO, you can choose to go to the USPTO directly. You don't have to file with us. We're not the only entry to the market, so to speak. We always say, please start with us. You can always follow up going to the EPO or the USPTO with your Swedish application as a priority.
This is really interesting to me when you mentioned, it's worth to do the search basically before you do anything, even. So, do I need to know how the future that I want to build look like, or the actual invention will function later on before I go to you and ask for the search?
I don't think you need to know that, of course, but the search is reflected on by the question. You have a basic concept, let's say, whatever it is, and then I can search for that. But if you don't know the actual application or product, I can't really help you. But I think you should really be early with these basic novelty searches. They're not super expensive, it's not a lot of time, but you really get a heads up on the field that you're in.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a powerful tool as well for your own R&D, because the documents we find, I mean, they might help you. You might find a partial solution in that document that you perhaps can use, or you can find a future business partner there. I mean, you shouldn't see everything we find as competition and what's hindering you. I mean, perhaps your best ally is there, because your invention or your idea might slot perfectly into what your competitor is doing. So it's opportunities. See it as opportunities.
A company can also use your services for the actual search for market research purposes.
Looking at patent information, all the information, available through patents, you can definitely find both, your worst competitor and your future licensees or partners
Yeah.
just by looking at the field. I mean, if you're in a new field, whatever it is, you can do landscaping type of search there just to find out who else is active here. Because I mean, patenting, then you're a few years before marketing, true marketing. So perhaps you will find another startup in exactly the same field as you are, but they are still, in the dark publicly, so to speak. So yeah, I think patent information is an underused resource, both if you're in academia, just looking for, a new method to perform your experiments, or if you're a startup, looking at the market. You should really use patent information for that as well.
I love that. I think that's a really, really great summary of what you guys do, and also why is it important, not just for future patent holders, but also potentially anyone in a market that is looking for more information about it. 140 years, congratulations. That's a really long time. That's a few generations. I guess there is a lot to learn from 140 years, and a lot of things have changed. So, how do you handle that internally?
Yeah, I think the big, I shouldn't call it obstacle, but opportunity. I mean, it's the amount of information that's growing so fast. I mean, I still have colleagues remembering when, searching for patents, then you went to the bookshelf and then you looked through the index card of each application trying to find something, that was already known. And now I teach at a beginner's course we have at the PRV for all employees and just talk 20 minutes about patents. And then I try each year to just describe the amount of data that's out there. And when I started, I think Espasnet had 100 billion documents. And now a few years later, it's 160 million. So the challenge is really to be able to find this needle in the haystack, and the haystack is growing exponentially. That's a real challenge.
One of the things that changed a lot is, of course, how much data and what type of data is available. But then I assume the number of applications have also exponentially grew throughout the last 140 years.
Yes. But I mean, in our office, we have these old black and white photos of distinguished gentlemen with big mustaches and uniforms sitting and doing their work in the 1880s. And they weren't that many. And now we're over 100 patent examiners, and the whole office is, I think, 250 people.
And then I assume you also need to use some modern tools to make sure that you get access to not just your own data, but also to the other patent office's data.
Yeah, and as a European patent office, we of course have a close collaborations with the EPO. So I mean, the EPO are our best friends, and we use the same search tools as the EPO. They provide us with the databases and the search tools, and we have, of course, we have national legislation, but everything is harmonized with the EPO within the EU. So if you come to us, you know that you're getting the same type of search as the EPO does. And we should treat it the same way. The praxis should be the same. Everything should be the same. But of course, we're much smaller and we're a bit closer to home. So let's say that the PRV, we have that personal touch for the Swedes compared to the EPO.
I think that's one of the beauties of the intellectual property industry, right? It's everyone has the chance to file local and then go global from that, which is very fascinating. But talking about that, how do you see Sweden from the patent data as a country of innovation, let's say?
Now I'm really proud to say, but we're really an innovative country. I mean, last year at the WIPO Global Patent Index, we were the second nation and number 2, so silver medal to us. And in all those kinds of research, we're always at least top 5. So we're really an innovative country. So,
what do you think makes Sweden or the Swedish applications being granted in a much higher ratio, or perhaps just having much, much larger applications from Swedish inventors?
I think that, I mean, we should say that we have a lot of applications from Swedes. I mean, to be frank, I mean,
yeah.
I would like to say that Swedish applications always get granted, but
but
I
then,
can't say that. So,
but then it's more the number of applications is
yeah,
right.
yeah, I think right. And of course, we have a proud tradition. I think you all know Alfred Nobel and the Nobel Prize. I mean, he was a Swedish innovator, and I think the dynamite that was in 1867 or something like that. So we have had a tradition since then, and we're proud to give out the Nobel Prize in December each year to brilliant research from throughout the world. So we've had the innovative spirit in our country for a long time. And if you look at the statistics, just pure applications per applicant for Sweden, I think everyone would say that we're a land of semi-trucks and telecommunications.
Yeah,
but of course, we have a wider breadth than that. We have a lot of forest in Sweden, so we're good at everything related to paper innovations and forestry. I think we have one of the world's largest underground mines for iron ore up north. So we're good in that kind of materials, mechanical industry. And I think life science is something that we're really good at. And I think that has also to do with what makes us pretty unique is in Sweden, we have what's called the teacher's exemption or the teacher's exemption. And that means that if you're a researcher or a teacher at a Swedish university, you own your own creative results.
Oh.
So the researcher owns their own patentable inventions. So I think, especially in the field of life science, a lot of entrepreneurial researchers at our different universities really come up with new inventions in life science and start new companies in that. So life science is really growing in Sweden. And we had a big pharmaceutical company from Sweden that kind of changed how they worked, and that left a lot of opportunity in Sweden for new companies to kind of fill their shoes. So that's really a booming industry. And as you know, we're the country of Spotify. We're the country of the Klarna payment service. So it's a lot of digital as well, fintech, apps, all kinds of digital innovation.
So pulling it a little bit down to the actual practical perspective, do you think that perhaps Swedes do quietly well that perhaps other nations or other inventors don't do?
So we're a small country, and in Europe, so we can't really compete on price. Let's say it like that. So what we really can compete with in the global market is our knowledge and our expertise and the quality of what we do, right? And integral to that is protecting that knowledge, that expertise with IP. So I would say IP is kind of at the core of Swedish business in that sense, because that's how we are competitive. We don't make the cheapest steel in the world, but the steel we make is really high grade and things like that.
Can you tell me a case where someone thought their idea was quite unique and they submitted the application, but perhaps they haven't done the prior art search too well, and then once you took a look, you immediately saw it will go into a different direction?
Yeah, of course. And mind you, since I'm in biotech, it will be biotech in all examples. I think to start with, we have a lot of success stories in biotech that, a researcher started with an idea and turned that into $1 billion company, more or less, especially in genetics and the use of genetic tools to study either proteins or genes. We have really success stories from the Stockholm area and the Uppsala area.
Mm.
There's this company called Olink in Uppsala, for example. It's a really successful company. I think they were sold for $3 billion for a couple of years ago. And I think that makes it a success story. And that started in the research lab of a professor at Uppsala University, really trying to harness genetic tools and turning into analysis method that could be used throughout the world.
I mean, you've mentioned this already as well, that the education and the university has a high impact on this. But do you think some of these success stories where the applications were written in a way that was very easy for you to handle and it was so obvious that it will get granted, those directly correlated to the work at the university and what they've done in terms of, not just education in life sciences, but education regarding IP as well?
One of the things that we have to be better at in Sweden is integrating IP into the university, into every master's degree, into every PhD degree, that you have to get more knowledgeable in IP. So I think still we can say that many success stories are based on the person having this interest or having an entrepreneurial spirit. So really working on how we can increase the awareness of IP throughout the universities to make sure that we have more of these, nice flowers growing through the asphalt, so to speak, right? Yeah. But I think our universities have good support systems helping these researchers to formulate good applications. But because, as you're alluding to, you have to have a good application that really covers your idea. And that's the basis going forward, right? There's nothing that makes me as happy as a good application where I can see, oh, they clearly state what they're after. They have good experiments showing that it works, and they have kind of a vision for the future. Those are the best applications to look at. I get so disappointed when you get a case when I can clearly see that this idea at its core probably is an invention, but the actual application is so lacking that we can't harness that idea and move forward. The only option for them is then to redact the application and perhaps work on it further. So I think that is the most disappointing for me when I see a good idea that isn't really realized in that application. A good application is based on some kind of novelty search beforehand, some kind of idea what's happening in the field. It's not just sprouting from pure work in the garage or pure research looking at the scientific publications. There needs to have been some kind of prior search in the patent field. I think that is really a key to success.
In order to get a successful application, you need to fulfill 3 steps, right? One is novelty, do your search and actually understand that what you are bringing has a future that is new, right? And then there is innovativeness. So how does that look like? How does that get evaluated? How can I make sure that I pass that step?
The best thing you can do there is having some kind of experimental section or examples of your application. At least in my field, you really need to show that it works. And if you can show that my marker for a certain cancer, it really performs better than every other marker out there, and I can show that in some experiments, then it's undeniably innovative. But if you only say, I found this new marker, I think it works, and your application ends there, then it's hard to really compare it to what's already out there. Then it's just an alternative to what's already out there. It doesn't bring any innovativeness to the table. A success, at least in my field, is that you bring some experimental work in your application as well. you try to foresee what the competition is, and you make a comparison to the known product and show that yours is better. Then you have a strong case. So really exemplify and build some meat into your application. Show that your idea stands out to the competition. Really show that it works, because then you have something to build on the inventiveness. If it's just another alternative to something that's already out there, it's harder for you to really prove your inventiveness, right? So prove that it's new, unique, and not obvious.
Okay, I think that's a wonderful summary. This part of the conversation. I would like to move into the second part of this conversation, which is just very simple rapid fire questions, basically.
Yes, let's start and we'll see what happens, right?
Okay, the most boring part of being a patent examiner.
Oh, I think it is when you get a hopeless application and you know that, I mean, this will never turn into anything, but we still have to go through the process and everything. So I think that's the most boring part, the most disappointing part, at least.
But then let me flip it. What's the most enjoyable part of being a patent examiner?
And just seeing every brilliant idea that's coming. I mean, and when we talk to people, at dinners and everything, they think that, every day you get to see these wonderful, brilliant inventions. But I'm sorry to say, it's not every day. But once in a while, you can get really shocked and think, wow, this is a brilliant idea. And then that's the best, right?
I love that. I love that. And I also love, that it makes you so happy and motivated to do this.
Yeah.
So, one IP myth that you would happily retire forever?
Oh, wow. Oh, that's a tricky question. Do you have a myth? Inspire me. What would you say into that question?
I think most of the people think about IP as a checkbox.
Yeah.
And
That's
I would really like to retire that one because in my opinion, IP should be a strategic decision that is constantly being looked over and thought through and not just something that is there to tick a box.
I couldn't say that better, and I agree with you. But I mean, I often enough I lecture at universities and something like that, and I get a feeling for someone the patent is just another publication on the CV or something that's looking good. So then I always ask them, what's the purpose of this patent? What do you want to do with it? And they're like, oh, but I want it granted. Okay, but that is not the end point. I mean, this should facilitate some kind of way forward. What's the business case? And at university, if you're a researcher, you don't want to talk about business, but you you know, frankly, it's part of some kind of business plan or strategic plan. So I agree with you there. Let's kill that myth. Patents is just not just for being patents. It's facilitating something else.
I love that. One initiative the Swedish Patent Office has had or currently having that you're really proud of?
Yeah, I think that what we're really trying now is to reach out further to universities and others with trying to teach everyone about IP and help everyone with IP. And I think that is really, really important, because if you don't know about it, it can be too late, so to speak. So I'm really proud of our efforts to trying to raise awareness about IP so that you can make your correct decisions beforehand. Because I mean, now I'm talking about academia all the time, but it's such a telling example because another kind of application that I hate looking at is a brilliant application, and the first document I find when I search is the inventor publicizing it as a scientific publication 2 months earlier. And then, I mean, then you have fallen into a quite deep well, and that really bothers me as well, because we have research at universities. I mean, the purpose is benefit for all mankind, right? That's the end goal.
Yeah.
But to reach that end goal, you often enough you need a product or some kind of commercial entity springing out of that. And if you just publish everything without, seeking IP rights, it will be hard to make it into a success story. So I try to tell people at universities, I mean, if you get a lot of funding at Swedish universities, and the purpose is, of course, to in the end make benefit for Sweden as a nation, because we give you money, and we want a return, to be crass. And to be able to do that, you need to protect your idea. If you have an idea for a forthcoming cancer drug, you really need to patent it. So there's economic muscles to turn it into a product. So I try to be hard with them. I mean, that's the realities,
Yeah, don't publish it before you protect it.
No.
Yeah.
At least, IP should be part of your publishing plan.
I really like that, especially because how it relates to the checkbox or the myth question, because you really need to think about it strategically and how far you want to take it, what do you want to do with it. And of course, things will change. So not everything will stay as you imagined it, but still, it's not just a checkbox. I have two other questions, one from our last guest and one is a more personal one. So my last guest asked, when do you recommend the applicant or potential applicant to take the PCT route or take a national route or let's say the EPO route for the application?
I generally say, I mean, start with the National Patent Office in your country. And if I'm in Sweden, I always say, I mean, start with us. We can give you a quick response. You can talk to us and you get a feeling of, what your application is worth. I mean, how good it is quickly. And it's quite inexpensive to send it to us, right? And then when you know that this is a good solid application, then you could go the PCT route or the EPO route. And that involves more money and more time. So you have kind of secured your success a bit earlier with us. If you think that your business is global, then of course you need to go, a PCT sounds really right. And definitely ending up at EPO sounds really right.
Yeah.
But you should always have a plan. I mean, I've talked to a lot about companies who said that, in the beginning, we just filed application after application after application. We never thought about what our end product is. And then they got in trouble because, R&D and filing applications, that costs money. But in the end, you have to earn money somewhere, right? So try to think about what is your end goal and your end product and how do I get there?
Fantastic. Time for the very last question, which is, if you weren't in IP, what would you be doing?
Maybe you know the answer to that. I would be in academia doing biomedical research, right?
Yeah, I love that. I love that so much. Thank you so much, Karn. It's been a wonderful conversation. I think there is so much value that the listeners could get out of this. I really thank you for your time and also to the Swedish Patent Office and to the PRV Consulting for taking a chance and talking with me and us. And just before we wrap up, anything you would like to highlight or raise awareness to the listeners?
Of course, first, thank you very much for having me. It's been a true pleasure. And I think, I mean, the key message is you have to have IP in your strategy if you're starting as an SME or an innovator. IP should always be on the table. And I think we have to be better in raising that awareness. I mean, even if we think of Sweden as one of the most innovative countries in the world, we still think we need to get IP awareness earlier in school, in doing your masters, in doing your PhD. I mean, we really have to integrate it more. I think that is the message from me. It's never too early for IP.
I think that's the best ending sentence in probably any IT podcast series. Thank you, Carl.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for being here. And to everyone else listening, thanks for tuning in to Talk IP2E today. If you enjoyed this episode, feel free to share it with any of your friends, colleagues, or any like-minded individuals. And if you are interested in participating in this podcast, feel free to reach out to us. See you in the next one. Thank you.
Bye-bye.